Hello everyone, this is Quilo and welcome to another music production video. Today I'm going to show you how I made a lo-fi track using a sample from The Lord of the Rings. For this track I chose a couple of speech samples from Boromir, particularly his speech at Rivendell and then while he was trying to take the ring from Frodo. I wanted to tell the story of how he was corrupted by the One Ring and his regret at the end of his life for trying to take the ring from Frodo. So the challenge here was trying to find samples that had little to no background music because I didn't want that to interfere with the music that I was going to add. But in the end, I think I picked out some great samples and it turned out really well with the story that I was trying to convey. So one of the most important things about lo-fi music is the sound quality. So you want to have it sound like it's a really old recording or it was recorded very badly. And if you're using acoustic instruments, the way to do that is by using bad microphones or by recording it in a place that's not ideal acoustically. But if you're using virtual instruments like me, the way to emulate that old sound is through plugins. Now, what I'm using here is iZotope Vinyl. And that's a free plugin that you can get, and it does a lot of things. So it emulates, like it kind of replicates the sound of a vinyl player, and it has mechanical noise, which let's play it and see how it sounds. Okay. So this is without, right? So now I put it back in.
Try to take the ring from him.
And we've got this knob right here that switches like different quality. Like you got 1930, 1950. Let's try it out a bit. This is the worst that you can have it sounding. And then we move up.
Try to take the ring from him.
So it starts to sound a bit better. You can also switch between mono and stereo. And then we have all these different things, like this is warp depth, and what that does is it kind of detunes the sound a bit. So the higher you go, the more detuned the sound is. Let's check it out. It sounds very out of tune right here, like it's modulating a lot.
Try to take the ring from him.
And right there, we don't have anything of that. Then we got some scratches. But I didn't like that. Then we've got some dust.
Try to take the ring from him.
So this emulates dust on the record. And electrical noise. Some wear. And then mechanical noise. But that's too much. I actually don't like that. So, okay, let's pause it. So that's the plugin that I use to emulate this retro vintage sound, which is pretty cool. So now that we're done with this, let's move on to the track. So we've got 5 different sections. And these ones right here, these tracks right here, these are my vocal samples. And then we've got my drums and a crash, some chords, guitar, mallets, bass, and that's about it. So the first section is just a sustained F chord, and on top of that is a vocal sample. So let's check it out a bit.
It is a gift to the foes of Mordor. Why not use this ring? Long has my father, the steward of Gondor.
So this would be my intro.
By the blood of our people are your lands kept safe.
And then the full loop kicks in. So it's the same chord. I added some drums. These drums, they're very electronic sounding. I like how that goes with the rest of the track. And then we've got these chords. It's still just an F chord, and right here it changes to a D minor. But those are the only two chords I have throughout the whole song. It's just sustained chords. There's not really much to it in terms of harmonic, changes. And then I've got this. Let's hear this section a bit so you can get a feel for it. So this thing right here is actually some kind of effects that I wanted on top of the chord. It's an F chord, but let's listen to it on its own. So it's kind of stabby electronic sounds that I think add a little bit of texture to the mix. And then we've got some guitars and mallets right here. I'm going to show you what they sound like on their own. Now what you probably hear is that they're kind of not on the tempo, right? They sound very sloppy, very loose. That's actually intentional. So one of the things about lo-fi music is that it values the imperfection of the recording and of the performance as well. So usually when I do electronic music, I quantize heavily all the instruments, not like 100%, but I change it a bit so it looks and feels pretty much on tempo, but it still retains a little bit of the imperfection. This is not what I did here. I didn't quantize it at all. And I played it actually very, very loosely on purpose. So it has a lot of imperfection on the performance. And let's hear what the rest. Okay. And then some vocal samples kick in. And now we move on to section B of this part. Okay, so there I changed a bit the guitar and the mallets, and I added a bass line, and then changed the chord from the F to the D. So that's the change. But in terms of instruments, it's pretty much the same, just with an added bass. And then let's move on to the next section.
Forgive me. I did not see.
So this crash. Okay, so that crash anticipates the next section. And what happens here is that it's a little more subdued. There's not that much going on, but I added this. I took everything off from here. It's just the chords, the drums, and then I added this bass right here, which is actually a synth bass. And then I added this other thing right here, which is very interesting. Let's play it on its own so you can hear it. Okay, as you can see, it's just a single sustained note that's modulating quite a bit. It's kind of like it has this electronic sound, kind of like electricity. And how I did all of that is by using LFOs on certain parameters. So I wanted it to feel like its movement is unpredictable. So every time you play this, it's gonna sound a bit different. And that's because I have a lot of LFOs stacked on top of each other. And what that does is it affects, I'm stacking like an LFO on top of another, an LFO on top of another, and that modulates the frequency at which these operate. and it does it so kind of like randomly. So you always get a similar pattern, but not quite exactly. Let's keep hearing it. Now let's move on to here.
A gift to the foes of Mordor. Why not use this ring? By the blood.
And right here, I have the same bass line that I was playing on this section, but instead of playing it with an electrical bass, I used a synth bass, and the sound is completely different. And it has this element of familiarity with the section that came before it, but it has this new sound, which brings in a lot of freshness to this section. So let's move on.
Why not use this ring?
Okay, let's listen to this vocal right here. As you can see, I have this curve, this automation curve, and what I'm adding here is reverb. So in the first part of the speech, there's no effect.
Why not use this ring?
And then you can hear the reverb on the last part of the speech. So I wanted to have this very dramatic effect, which I wouldn't normally do it as dramatic, but I felt it was appropriate for what I was going for here. Now let's move on to the next section.
I did not see.
Okay, so as you can see, the elements are still kind of the same, but how do you transition from one section to the next and make it sound different using just the same elements? Well, what I did here is I took the chords, which have been playing for the whole song. So I took that out. I brought the guitar back in, and then everything is pretty much the same still. But it feels a bit different. And also here on the stereo, so I added this frequency, this reverb, and as you can see, it's gonna bypass it. So what I did is, for this section, I wanted to differentiate from the other ones, so I added this EQ, and I'm filtering everything below right here, below 200. I'm filtering all the low frequencies, and it's a subtle difference, but it creates this contrast between what comes before and what comes next, because it's just in this part of the track. Here we have the guitar back. And now we're gonna go to a reverse cymbal.
It is a gift to the foes of Mordor. Why not use this ring? By the blood of our people. Why not use this ring?
So this is kind of works like a chorus, because I have these vocal samples that are the same as here, and everything is kind of like exactly the same, except now I have the guitar going on in the background. So let's move on.
Why not use this ring?
And then I close the track with just
I did not see.
the vocal sample.
I have failed you all.
And then this sample of elves singing, which I thought was really cool to end it, because I didn't want to end it just abruptly after the speech. So you can listen to this song. I'm going to link it up on the end of the video, and you can check it out and see see all these things in the full track. So that was it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a comment below. Let me know what kind of techniques you use for making lo-fi music. And if you want to see more music production content, remember to like this video and subscribe. See you in the next one.
Why not use this ring? By the blood of our people. Why not use